What made you go from meh to oh crap I need to see a doctor? One time I went to go take a pee. I was watching the stream and thought to myself, this looks a little off. I might need to get this looked at. About that time my urine went from a slight reddish tint to full on blood red. My next thought was, well, now it's to go to the doctors. I finish peeing, this nasty, bloody, purulent mucus came out the end of my dong. Call 911 now, I yelled as full freakout mode ensued. Luckily it was a minor case of very severe UT. Developed epilepsy in my 20s and couldn't figure out what's been triggering them. A year and a half later in unstable medicine I'm going on 3 months without a grand mal seizure. Yay for 3 months seizure free. I kept my contacts in for too long. Had a headache and decided to sleep it off. Thankfully I took out my contacts because when I woke up it seriously felt like I was hit in the skull with a baseball bat. Any amount of light hurt so freaking bad. Rushed to the ICU where they looked at my eye and said I had a corneal ulcer. So now I have a very small scar on my eye. It doesn't affect my vision, but I totally learned from sleeping with my contacts in. I had recurrent back pain for a couple of years. It would be really bad for a couple of days, then it would go away for a few months. Then last year it came back and didn't go away. I thought it was some kind of musculoskeletal problem and tried to push through it. When I couldn't breathe or walk without assistance I went to the ER. Both of my lungs were collapsed with 800 milliliters of fluid on each one plus some around my heart. Doctors were surprised I was still alive. Bent down to pick up mail I had placed on my stairs. Stood up too quickly and got lightheaded. An hour and a half later I still didn't feel right. Lightheaded, racing heart, shortness of breath. My dad had gone through heart issues less than a year before. I thought my mind was convincing myself that I was in atrial fibrillation because he had had lots of episodes of it and I knew some about it. Go to the ER. Yep, AFib. Several hours later, and 2 ineffective chemical cardioversions later, I get an electrical cardioversion. Defibrillation. They knocked me out, did the cardioversion, and I came around in less than 4 minutes. Woke up feeling like everything was normal again. About defibrillation. Yes, the machine had paddles. No, they didn't use them. They used 2 large sticker patches, one chest, one back. I was hooked up the defibrillator within minutes of walking into the ER. No panicking or rushing. The nurses were calm and professional. The defibrillator is also a heart monitor, and getting it hooked up early means it's available to use quicker when needed. Yes, they say clear. Yes, I was out, but I just had to ask when I woke up. For about a week after, the 2 rectangular spots where the electrical current passed were red, irritated, and itchy. I'm a guy with a hairy chest. Yes, I lost a good amount of hair when the nurse ripped the chest patch off. It really was the best way to do it. Persistent dizziness and headaches. They kept getting stronger, so I kept popping with Gravel, Pepto, and Advil. One morning I woke up with a searing headache and reached for my extra strength liquid Advil and the bottle was empty. I polished off the whole bottle in less than a week. That's when I realized it was really serious. Turns out it was a brain tumor. Luckily surgery fixed me up. When I googled, what does throat cancer look like, and a bunch of pictures similar to the fleshy lump in the back of my throat came up. Gave birth last month, and went from okay baby has passed meconium inside. So we'll get you out of the bath to push to okay she's out, but you might be bleeding a little too much with me not giving a crap because OMG look at this adorable little pink squishy. I have to hit the emergency button. She's emerging and literally 10 people in the room all doing something different at once, and then they're pushing so hard on my stomach that it hurts worse than the dang labor I just went through, and it feels like buckets of blood are coming out. You can have the baby back now, and OMG pink squishy I love you. 3 tears, 1/3 degree, 40 minutes of stitching with 2 doctors. Went from meh to what stop ouch to meh in like the span of 2 hours, and it was exhausting and I'm never doing it again. About to sleep and my tooth is feeling weird, hurts a little but nothing I can't sleep through. I wake up from a nightmare in deep sweat and my jaw is exploding with pain. I stagger out of bed somewhat delirious and collapse on my kitchen floor in pure unadulterated agony. I've had fingers crushed, bones broken and skin badly burned before, but nothing has ever even come close to how bad toothache hurts. My freaking god, it was the worst time of my entire life. I had a hot pulp and my dentist said it was the worst they'd ever seen. Had to have an emergency root canal. Look after your teeth. Mouth pain is the worst. I have a pretty decent pain tolerance in general, but there is nothing like mouth pain. Wake up a day after doing heavy yard work, including shoving wheelbarrows full of mulch uphill. Feel something funny down there. Inspect. 1 ball, 2 balls, 3 balls. 2 hours later, I'm being prepped for hernia surgery. Not on my part as much as the doctors, but I guess this sort of applies. When I was in grade 11 or 12, I noticed this weird lump in the muscle of my forearm. Recognizing it was weird, I went to my family doctor and got a referral for an ultrasound. At some point after I got the ultrasound done, my mother found out about it and sent the doctor a note explaining that there's a family history of muscle cancer. And just like that, I was scheduled for an MRI. The lump's still there. Nobody seems to know what caused it, and it's apparently invisible on diagnostic imaging. Had a small spider bite or so I thought on my arm, scratched it in the shower so the pus would wash away like a pimple. Skip forward a couple weeks and I see a dark line running down my arm from the bite area. This was on the same day I was at my grandma's house, who is of course a walking medical encyclopedia. She believes it's blood poisoning, so I go to the ER, have blood drawn and find out it's cellulitis. Had what I thought was a pimple and picked at it. It bled for a little while and I thought nothing of it. 2 weeks later, however, after picking at it some more thinking it was just a pimple or acne, it bled again, and it didn't stop bleeding. Went through at least 2 boxes of tissues and several bandages, trying to stop the bleeding. With some help from my mom, we managed to stop the bleeding by creating an artificial scab with some medicine that I forget the name of. Saw the doctor the next day and found out it was a blood vessel that had risen to the surface of my skin, which is called a cherry angioma. Simple fix was to cauterize it with electricity. A lot of fuss over a simple scratch. Pain level went from "oh frick this is bad, but I can basically keep my crap together" to "I can no longer give even the slightest appearance that I am okay." That, and the EMT buddies I was hanging out with said they were legitimately concerned that I might be dying. I had a mild pain in my left side on a bus once. Figured it was nothing. 5 minutes later I was screaming and violently writhing on the floor for 8 hours. Kidney stones hurt. One time I was at work and I felt a touch queasy. No big deal. I'll just sit down and try to eat something. That'll set me right. Nope. I straight fell out my chair and started flopping around on the floor like a fish. Had a seizure for no reason at all, or none that the doctors could find. Had a killer migraine for weeks and was constantly dizzy. I doubt I'll ever know why it happened. Abdominal hernia. I didn't care much about it for a long time. Something would protrude. I would push it back in. One day I bent over to pick up an orange juice cup from the ground for my daughter. Was at a picnic, and suddenly it looked like my intestines pushed through my abdominal wall into a pocket the size of a tennis ball. I painfully pushed everything back in and went to the doctor. Surgery was a year ago June. I had an annoying pain on my back right side that moved to the right side under my rib. I knew it was gas. The next morning it was still there. I lay down to move the gas. That made it worse. I started having horrible pain in the middle of my chest. Thought I was having a heart attack, vomiting, etc. There was a point where I thought I was going to pass out because I couldn't take the pain anymore. A few days later, I was talking to my husband and decided to look up the symptoms because I was still a little sore. I went to the doctor and had to go to the hospital for an ultrasound. I had a bad gallbladder attack. Gallbladder attacks are the worst. I feel for you. What I thought was a tight muscle didn't get better and kept snapping. Even went to 2 docs before one finally raided and found a brutal hip fracture that needed emergency surgery. Apparently the snapping wasn't a muscle. It was a bone just fracturing and fracturing. Lovely. My left leg started to lose feeling. First from at the toes and worked its way up over the course of a couple days. There was no pain, just tingling. No pain equals no doctor, right? That's what I thought until I tried to stand up and my leg just buckled. Time to get that checked out. Went to the ER, had an MRI, had a ruptured disc that, and I quote, obliterated my spinal cord. I was hours from permanent nerve damage or paralysis. Had surgery immediately. All is well now. In December of '07 I had a really bad calf strain. Got so bad I could hardly put weight on it. I had deep vein thrombosis, blood clot in a deep vein, in my leg. Turned out I had rosacea. After around 5 years I grew out of it, at around the same time as I stopped eating dairy. Then I decided I really missed cheese. The rosacea came back but all over my whole face and neck along with a strange, intense itchiness that I'd never experienced. And hives. Had my oh crap I need to see a doctor moment real freaking quick. I was sore in my pelvis. Think between left leg and base of dong. I thought I must have rammed it into the bag hooks while working behind the register. It didn't get better, though. I thought I must have kept running into it when I wasn't looking. It got to the point where I couldn't tie my shoes, run, or wear a seatbelt. It also looked like a freaking golf ball was under my skin. I was driving a Del Sol at the time, which was not an ergonomic masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. It freaking killed having to sit in that position. Working a clutch and wearing a seatbelt made it worse. I went to the doctor. Eventually, they found out I had a really pee-off lymph node that wouldn't calm down. I had recently found out I was POS, that can happen sometimes. Even when the numbers look good. I needed surgery to remove it. Turns out it was the size of a robin's egg, which is apparently big for a lymph node. All the rest was swelling. No cancer, no nothing. It was just pee off. I've been sick with mono for 2 weeks. I didn't go to the doctor or suspect anything was wrong until I woke up one day and I was jaundiced like crazy. Turns out the monovirus was attacking my liver and affecting enzyme production, making me throw up frequently as well. Got stung by a bee while riding a motorcycle on my way to work. My dad is very allergic, and I'm a bit allergic myself, but only very rarely have serious reactions to it. Half hour later at work, my bicep was uncharacteristically swole like Arnie and the veins in my arm were bright, inflamed red. Yep, supervisor told me to get gone. I tried to find a doc in the box that wouldn't take all of my savings, and after a bit of driving around with the ridiculous bee stung arm, got treated. Fun times. Thought, wow that's weird, my poop is completely white. Google reasons why and immediately call my doctor. Went in for blood tests and MRI that day after I told doctor I didn't have any pain, just white stools. Liver was shutting down from my autoimmune disorder. Went on prednisone and luckily it went into remission. I used to fall asleep in class ever since I can remember. Just thought hey school is boring. Fast forward I'm 21 years old and still falling asleep in classes. Anytime I have to drive anywhere over an hour long I'd have to pull over to take naps. Would fall asleep at work daily and just felt extremely exhausted 24/7. I just thought hey this must be what it's like to be an adult. Tired all the time and just wanting to sleep. Bet it'll only get worse from here. Then one day, I fell asleep mid-sentence talking to my boss. I played it off to him like I was sick and just passed out for a moment. Went to the doctors and did some sleep studies. Turns out I have narcolepsy. Have suspected I've had PID-induced ED since I was 17. I'm 21 now. Got my first girlfriend and lost my virginity last October, and there's definitely an issue down there. Finally seeing a doctor on the 19th of this month. Wish me luck. I never knew that was a thing. That explained so much. Frick. I woke up for work on a Friday morning with a tickle in my throat. After work I traveled to Boston for a pre-planned weekend trip. My throat and tonsils swelling more the entire time. I get home on Sunday not being able to swallow my own saliva without almost crying. I did cry at times. Monday morning there's a massive blizzard and everything is closed except a walk-in clinic. I forced my SO to help me drive through 24+ inches of snow because it was really unbearable. The doctor there said I had the worst tonsils he's seen in years, and that if it keeps swelling I should go to the ER. Turns out I had a really bad case of tonsillitis due to undiagnosed mono. Vertigo. Was getting my daughter ready for school when suddenly I felt like I drank a gallon of moonshine and couldn't even stand up. Room spinning. The works. Meclizine is life now. Also I can't ride simulators or use VR anymore. That kinda sucks. I used to have a small lump on my knee. I'd had it for as long as I could remember so I never really worried about it. but one day I realized that it had doubled in size and around 10 more lumps had started to appear around it. By the end of the week I had 3 awful lumps the size of peas on my knee, and a few dozen smaller ones. Luckily they were nothing more than warts, and after 2 years of applying nitrogen to my knee they finally seemed to be gone. They still gave me a huge scare when they started to multiply though. My knee started to hurt when I was growing. No biggie. Growing pains. Until one day I decided to cross my legs and my knee just seceded from the rest of me in a near full dislocation. Went to the doctor for years until my pediatric endocrinologist. I have congenital hypothyroidism. I was born without a thyroid. On my last ever visit to her said, "Oh crap. These symptoms we've been seeing for years might actually be Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Gee, thanks." I get earaches a lot. Most of the time I'm meh about it. Take some Tylenol and go about my life. One time in particular though it moved into an ear infection in under 8 hours. I've had ear infections before but nothing compared to the pain I was feeling that evening. I paced around the room in tears for about 2 hours before giving up and going to urgent care where I got medication for my ear along with pain medication. I'll never forget the exact moment that the pain medication kicked in. It was absolute bliss. One night in college I went to an exceptionally crazy forest party, drank way too much and ended up blacking out. I was obviously extremely hungover and in a lot of pain, so I went home, drank a bunch of water and slept for a few hours. When I woke up I had super intense pains in my abdomen and I chalked it up to it being from my drinking. Fast forward 2 days later and I'm in too much pain to leave my apartment. Every time I move it's painful. After 3 days of this and I go to the campus health center. They ran some tests but couldn't find anything wrong but told me to go to the ear. When I get to the ear they have no clue and give me fluids and send me home. I return in about an hour since the pain is so terrible. They do a colonoscopy and find out I have a few huge kidney stones. Took me another week with pain meds and prostate meds, I'm female haha, to pass them. Wrecked my bike in front of the doctor's office. Went in and they patched me up. They had my mom pick me up because it was pretty bad but nothing serious, and then I went to put a coat on and I couldn't extend my arm the whole way and we were both like, oh crap. Had a radial head fracture and had it in a sling for a few weeks. Sorry if TMI. You know that orange grease you get when taco mix is added to ground beef? When I was 14, I was trying to poop after being constipated for a while, and that came out. It wasn't a ton, but it was enough that it would also leak while I wasn't trying to use the bathroom. I got worried and told my mom, who took me to the ear. After a few hours and an x-ray, we learned that I'd swallowed a small jumper ring and it was stuck in my intestine. Within the next 24 hours, I got the same lecture 7 times, from 7 different people. I had a pain in my toe and it was an ingrown toenail. I had a red spot next to my eye on my nose and it didn't go away for months. Went to multiple doctors and dermatologists and they had guesses but none of them actually knew what it was. It just went away, so I DK. That happened to me. Expect it was a white spot on my lip. And it didn't go away. I also only had to go to one doctor. It was skin cancer. I had a cyst that would periodically swell up, then burst and leak liquid and a couple drops of blood. I had it for years. Then it swells up worse and hurts like heck. Put it off for 3 days and start having weird as frick dreams and waking up either burning hot or freezing cold. This wasn't enough to send me to the doctor because I am an idiot. Then I wake up to a horrendous smell and find it burst and is leaking putrid brown. Turns out I had a cyst with a badly infected abscess and was probably on the way to some nasty complications. I have another cyst in the same place, but I'm still an idiot, so I haven't gone to deal with it yet. Quit being an idiot and go to the doctor. I got my foot stomped on by accident. My big toe hurt but I just left it thinking it would go away. I woke up one morning to see my big toenail looking as neon green as uranium from The Simpsons. Funnily enough, my Mexican doctor took my sock off and immediately screamed, "Ay caramba." Just the thought of that makes me giggle. 3. I was having a strong headache. I thought it was the heat or the lack of sleep, until I remembered I had spent the previous day putting rat poison in my yard. Turns out it was the heat and the lack of sleep. I used to get these aches every so often on my right side. They would come and go. I figured it must be gas or a muscle strain. Woke up one night feeling like I was being stabbed with a white hot knife. Tried moving. Tried going to the bathroom until after an hour, waking my husband to take me to the ER. By that time, I was crying. At the ER, they saw me trying to walk in, husband supporting me and still couldn't stand upright, and ran out with a wheelchair. The only thing that touched the pain was IV Dilaudid. An ultrasound later, I met the culprits. 5 gallstones with one lodged in the neck of the gallbladder and a smaller one in my bile duct. Worst pain ever. I've broken bones and had ovarian cysts rupture, but they were nothing compared to it. I googled some symptoms for depression and it turns out I matched like 16/18. Still working on setting up some appointments eventually. It's a spectrum, so you never really know, but I'd always recommend appointments. They can be great if you find someone who is good. Mild Braxton Hicks contractions starting at 16 weeks. Perfectly normal in a pregnancy, and this was my second, so it was no big deal. Then my waters broke at 19 weeks. Suddenly big freaking deal. If you burn yourself badly enough, your nerve endings get damaged so you don't feel much pain for the first minute or so. I burned myself pretty severely on a piece of hot metal. At first I was like, ouch, oh that hurt a little. Stupid clumsy me. About a minute and a half later, holy fuckfits, that hurts worse than anything ever, I'm dying. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.